Welcome, everyone. We have a very special week for you this week. I am very excited to talk about your new book. Your Brain is Always Listening. This is fun because it's actually in our public television show, but we've got 50 dragons to get through. So I love this idea because it's different than your other books. I mean, I really loved The End of Mental Illness and I thought it was a special book, but this book is different because it talks about the dragons that breathe fire on your brain. And so it makes it really easy to understand, like all these different issues. And sometimes sometimes your issues are not your own. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are familial. But it's really fun. We're going to talk about all these dragons. There's 50 of them. And I just think this is a really fun book. And the dragons, the animations in the show are so cute. So let's get started because we got 50 to go through.
Well, we're actually going to do this over 6 to 8 weeks. So
not today.
We're going to dig into each of these. And so think of them as the big psychological issues that your brain is always listening to.
And try to identify which ones are yours or your family's. And remember that dragons have babies. So there's probably more than one dragon that you have. I have a whole bunch of them. I'm just saying. And
we're going to honor each one and talk about them and talk about where they come from, what they trigger inside of you, how they cause you to react, and what to do about them. We also have a brand new 12-step program for anyone who is struggling with addictions. You know, the initial 12-step program was developed many decades ago, and millions of people have benefited from it, but it's not based on any underlying neuroscience. So I redid this 12 steps from a brain health perspective. But before we get to the dragons, we have testimonials. This is from Pink Bling from the US. I love listening to this podcast while I'm doing housework during the week and cleaning our janitorial accounts every weekend. I had to put it on pause this weekend to listen to Tana's new book and enjoyed that as well. I find the content very helpful and insightful, and I've been very grateful for the information on killing the ants since I first learned that in a PBS special with Dr. Amen many years ago. So thank you. So we're going to make Pink Bling, PNKBLING, one of our winners of either your new book or my new book. Just go to the Brain Warriors Way. Just go to Brain Warriors Way podcast.com and tell us you're one of the winners and let us know how to reach you.
I also want to just thank those of you. I got some amazing reviews on Amazon from some of our listeners. And I'm grateful. So thank you to those of you who took the time out of your day to give me some reviews. So they were just lovely to read.
So let's get started. Your brain is always listening. I actually opened the book at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I remember for me, it was March 10th. I was scheduled to be on the Mel Robbins show. We had scanned her. It's a nationally syndicated television show. The whole show was going to be about the end of mental illness. And I was so excited, but not really that excited to get on a plane with COVID-19.
Yeah, I told you had to stay away for 2 weeks.
And I wouldn't be excited about that at all. And that night, I wrote down mental hygiene is just as important as washing your hands. We need to disinfect our thoughts and tame the hidden dragons that are going to drive anxiety, depression, addiction, stress, and bad habits. And the pandemic has absolutely done that. Then on March 16th, we were at home and it was a Sunday night and I got a call from one of my favorite patients, Miley Cyrus, and Miley was freaking out, as most of America was freaking out. And she's like, her dragons were attacking her. How long will the viruses live on packages? And she and I had been working on taming her dragons for a long time. And as we began to use the tools, as I helped walk her back from the edge, she asked me, she said, will you come on my Instagram tomorrow with
wonderful.
my 105 million fans?
Oh, let me think about it.
And share your dragon taming strategies. And so I did. It was
fantastic.
Yeah. And she actually started a program called Bright Minded, where every week she'd have one of her friends and they'd talk about how to be mentally healthy during a challenging time. And then April 17th, my mom and dad were on the front page of the Orange County Register because both of them had COVID. And 5 days later, they came out of the hospital.
But the way that they opened the article, to this day, it's so classic of your mom. She packed her bag, put on her lipstick, looked at her family and said, I am going to die. I'm leaving to die.
After she put on her lipstick. And so we were celebrating. I mean, they were on the front page of the LA Times. And but my dad really didn't get better from COVID.
But he wasn't well to start with, and it weakened him.
Well, he and I last January were lifting weights together. But then he had a GI bleed, right. And that
he was in the hospital, and we think that's where he got COVID.
Made him tired, and so that stacked with COVID, stacked with he also got Epstein-Barr. On May 5th, my dad passed away. And that's where, and we'll talk about this, the grief and loss dragon really breathed fire on me and my mom and my siblings that day, because he's obviously a very important part of our lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the dragons from the past. These are issues you inherited, either from your childhood or your early adulthood, or even from your ancestors. There's 13 dragons from the past. These are the ones that sort of tell the story your brain is always listening to. And we're going to teach you how to rewrite your story, because your moment by moment thoughts and behaviors come from the story you have been telling yourself. You know, I'm a child of an alcoholic. I came from a dysfunctional family. I'm short, I'm insignificant. Or your dragon is. We're going to go over the 13 dragons.
Because they're very much connected to your negative thoughts.
Yes, they are. And then we're going to talk about the they, them, and other dragons. These are the other people in your life, past and present, who are still talking to you. Your brain is always listening. Even though my dad is dead, my brain is always listening to the things he told me when I was a child, or the things he would tell me in the last 5 years of his life.
So is this the they, like when my mother calls me all the time and says, they said?
Yes.
And I'm like, who is they? I don't know, but they said. Well, she believes whatever they say.
So we have 13 dragons from the past and 9, they, them, and other dragons. And they is the society dragons. So it's sort of the faceless group where you think they I don't know if it's CNN or Fox or.
So funny. I don't trust anyone. And so many people trusted faceless, nameless they. I'm so confused by that.
So these are things like your parents' dragons, the sibling and birth order dragon. I'm one of 7. And so this is a big deal for me. And in the book, I talk about the research on middle children and older children and younger children and only children. And I think it's why we work so well.
Oh, you came fully trained in housebroken. I am so grateful to your sisters. It's not even funny.
We're going to talk about children dragons because you obviously, Chloe, is in your head a lot.
All the time.
Whether she's talking or not. Teachers and coaches, popular kids, your friends, mean girls and bullies, former, current, and prospective lovers. So you are my current and former and prospective lover.
Yeah, till death do us part.
Yes, that's it. And we'll talk about internet trolls a bit as well. We had a bit of that when we posted about why we got the vaccine. And then we're going to talk about maybe one of my favorite sections, bad habit dragons, and how to break the bad habits that you have developed over time, whether it's overindulging or procrastination, being distracted. It's a very practical section on how to have a better life. We will also talk about the ants. There's a whole ant killing section in the book. And then we're going to finish with the scheming dragons. These are the dragons that are making you fat, depressed, and feeble-minded. From food pusher dragons to digital dragons to toxin dragons. And one of my favorite dragons here is the holiday dragon. As people got it off track because of the holidays that they continually give themselves an excuse. We're going to tame that dragon for you. So stay with us. The dragons from the past are coming up next. What did you learn today? Write it down. Take a picture of it. Post it on any of your social media sites. You can also go to yourbrainisAlwaysListening.com. And if you pre-order the book, I have 4 very special gifts for you, including a free bottle of Happy Saffron, my favorite supplement that I make sure I take, Tana takes every day. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about my new book, Your Brain is Always Listening. Tame the hidden dragons that control your happiness, habits, and hangups. And if you pre-order the book, you can go to yourbrainisAlwaysListening.com. I have some great gifts for you, including a series of 6 hypnosis audios, an event with me, March 17th, only for those who pre-ordered the book, where I'll answer your questions and spend a couple of hours with you. and a free bottle of Happy Saffron, normally a $49.95 value. That will give you a coupon for a free bottle. You have to pay the shipping, but it's just a supplement. I think is amazing. But you have
I do. I have a
testimonial to read.
Testimonial I want to read. This is by future RDH Rach from United States favorite podcast. I've come to love Dr. Daniel and Tana Amen. They share a wealth of free knowledge in easy to listen to and to digest episodes. I love the sound of their voices, and I love their willingness to help me. Thank you. Rachel Miller, 20 years young. Wow.
Love that.
Yeah, she's very young. So that's great. She's got a huge head start. So if you, Rachel, want to let us know which book you would prefer, we will send you a signed copy. Either Daniel's new book, Your Brain is Always Listening, or The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. I will sign that for you. And just let us know. Go to brainwarriorswaypodcast.com. Leave a note for us, and we will send that out to you.
So what we're going to start now are the dragons from the past. And there are 13 of them. And for each dragon, we're going to tell you their origin story or how they came about, what triggers them, how they cause you to react, how to tame them. And then we'll also start talking a little bit about their upside. Because many of these dragons have an upside. And then in the book, I also give you meditations for them. So, for example, my dragon is the abandoned, invisible, and insignificant dragon. And the meditation is, I am loved, I am unique, I am significant, I am seen, and then lest who you are seen by, I'm seen by you, which I love. And I am making a difference in the lives of, and then lest who you are making a difference for.
So many women struggle with this one. And not just women, but I mean, so many women struggle with this insignificant dragon, and young women, adolescents.
No question about it. Before we get into the dragons, I want to tell you a quick story. I opened the book with my interaction with Miley, but then I tell a story of Jimmy, who's 39, who is the son of a notorious gang leader.
Well, and one could argue that a gang leader gets their significance, gets a lot of significance by being a gang leader.
Well, when you're the son of one.
Right. It's the opposite.
He was a high-level business executive who had just been released from a psychiatric hospital after he was suicidal. He had severe anxiety, panic attacks, dread, because he had to give a presentation in public. And that had always triggered him. And he said if he had to describe the fear, it's like you're on death row and the clock's running out. The guard opens the door and you must take the first step. That's the kind of fear that runs through my bones. That's what he said.
Wow.
He's had this thing we call glossophobia, or fear of public speaking, since 12, when his grandmother made him give an impact statement for his father, right, who's in charge of the Mexican mafia in LA, who is on trial at the Los Angeles County Superior Court for double murder. And he was infested with dragons and ants because he had the thought, what if I cannot speak and end up killing my dad?
So that's where that started.
And the ants, and whenever you and I see somebody new, we're always listening for the ants,
right,
the automatic negative thoughts. So, and they stack, and then they attack you. And Jimmy's ants were, I can't speak in public, so I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to be afraid of interviewing. so I won't get a new job. I'm a loser. My wife will divorce me.
Wow.
I'll end up on the streets, so I should kill myself. And
so he went from I can't speaking to I should kill myself. Wow.
Right. But it's this process of negative thought patterns that drive suicide, that drive anxiety and depression. And the ants, the automatic negative thoughts, are fuel.
It's fascinating how, if you really unravel it, it starts with one negative thought and then it just starts to wind and breed and just snowball.
And if you understood his life,
right,
which he allows me to share, he had intense, persistent trauma. He had many of the dragons we are going to talk about. He watched his father deal drugs and beat up other people. At the age of 8, 12 SWAT officers stormed into his apartment. He was laying on his father's chest on the couch, and all of a sudden, the SWAT officers broke through the door with guns pointed at them. You should have heard the emotion he told that to me. When he went to visit his dad at Folsom in prison, his dad made him go up to other gang leaders, notorious gang leaders, and introduce himself.
Oh my gosh.
And it was something his father called testing his mettle.
Oh my gosh.
He witnessed drive-by shootings. He was in car chases before the age of 9. He had been kidnapped twice by feuding family members. His mother kept his siblings.
Is he going to write a book? This would be a great book.
His mother kept his siblings, but sent him away to live with his grandparents. And that's what the origin of the abandoned, invisible, and insignificant dragon. And then while he was living with his grandparents, his grandmother was raped by a rival gang member. And while they were raping the grandmother, one of the members asked Jimmy if he wanted to have sex with his grandmother. I mean, it's really crazy stuff. The ancestral dragon, which we'll talk about, both sides are loaded with anxiety, depression, drug abuse. And Jimmy had some bad habit dragons. He loved watching violent movies, boxing, and UFC fights. He loved watching execution videos and animal fights because his arousal template, that thing that excites you and turns you on, was set when he was a child.
It's
watching
sort of like me, my like for movies about justice. You call it revenge, I call it justice. That happens.
You know, if you're listening to this podcast, you know that we also are thinking about brain influences. Jimmy played football. He was an all-conference linebacker. He had many head injuries. He boxed during high school. At the age of 15, he fell 8 feet onto his head, was unconscious, lost his hearing, had to relearn to walk. He used drugs and alcohol as a teenager and young adult to cope. When we scanned him, he had an emotional trauma pattern in his brain. That's not a big surprise. And showed damage to his left temporal lobe, which can often go with dark thoughts, a little bit like yours.
But his life was crazier than mine.
So with treatment, and it was intense for the first 6 months, but we were taming dragons. And he's a worker. You got to do what we ask you to do, right? You can't listen and then it just is magic. It requires
It's like praying. That's like praying, God, please let there be no weeds. Please let there be no weeds in my garden. But you don't go out and pull the weeds. It makes no sense.
And I use medication for his left temporal lobe, supplements to rebalance his brain. His mood stabilized, his anxiety lessened, became a better husband. He's been promoted at work. He lost 37 pounds, stronger, more energy, and he completely helped his family, which, as you can imagine, there's been stress. Get well. And I am grateful to have been able to work with him. So you are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, and you get better like he did in the 4 circles we always talk about. Biological, we went to balance his brain. Psychological, killing the ants, taming the dragons. Social, his relationships became better. And spiritual, he really does have a deep sense of meaning and purpose. And that's how people get well. So when we come back, we're going to talk about my primary dragon, the abandoned, invisible, and insignificant dragon. What'd you learn today? Did you learn anything important to you? Write it down. Take a picture of it. Post it on any of your social media sites. Go to brainwarriorswaypodcast.com. Leave us a comment, question, or review. And if we answer your question or read the review, we'll enter you into a drawing to win either Your Brain Is Always Listening or The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. And we'll sign them for you. Stay with us.
Are you looking for ways to heal ADD, enhance your memory, conquer anxiety, depression, insomnia, autism, and other conditions? Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Amen. We provide courses based on what we've learned over 30 years of clinical practice. We also offer accredited courses geared to physicians, therapists, and students looking to get ahead. Are you ready to change your brain and change your life? Get started today.
Welcome back. We are talking about Your Brain Is Always Listening. We are continuing on, and today we're going to talk about the abandoned, invisible, and insignificant dragons, which is Daniel's primary dragon. I love the dragons. I think they're a great metaphor for understanding what's going on with your brain. They make it easy to understand, and this idea of taming them, it's so helpful and puts it into perspective. But before we go on, you have a review. And if you are so inclined, we would love for you to leave us a review at brainwarriorswaypodcast.com, or you can go to Apple or Stitcher or wherever you listen. We would love to hear from you. And you want to read a review?
I do. This is from Chippy Puff, AC. Chippy Puff. Dear Dr. Amen, I bought your book, Healing ADD, more than 2.5 years ago. I had suddenly noticed my health deteriorate and was trying hard to fix it. Your book gave me hope. From the fact you had written the book and your voice present on the pages, I believe you genuinely care to help others and not just make money. Your advice is helpful to anyone, even someone without ADD. Reading sections of your book, I got teary-eyed from your kindness. Thank you. I am grateful for your service.
I love that. And before we get started, I want to say something because that's true. So your dragons are not always negative. They can motivate you to do good things. And that's true. I always tell people when I'm doing my interviews, I've been doing a lot of interviews recently because of my book, and people invariably ask about you. And I always tell people, you really are the person that they see when they see you speaking or when they see you, on live chats. That's you. You're not putting on an air. He's genuinely loving and caring, but also you work in like an extraordinary amount, and yet you don't think of it as work because you really love helping other people. And so that is your dragon tamed and doing a good thing.
Well, the idea for the dragons actually came from our friend Sharon May. We did a podcast with her, and she talked about the dragons from the past breathing fire on your amygdala, the fear center of your brain. And I was so taken by that. I went, well, I bet there are different kinds of dragons. And you helped me develop it. We created the dragons from the past. There are 13 of them. And of course, we have to start with my primary dragon, and you have primary dragons and secondary dragons. And my primary dragon is called the abandoned, invisible, or insignificant dragon. And its origin is, if you were abandoned, I was not. If you were not seen, I was not seen. if you were lonely, I was not lonely. I'm one of 7. Not lonely, but not seen. If your parents were unavailable or not competent, now my mom's very competent, my dad was gone all the time. Or you have siblings or children even that are high achievers. So you are often not seen.
I was abandoned, I was invisible, and I was insignificant. There's no question about it.
So you can relate.
As a child, all of those things.
So I am the second son in a Lebanese family. And if you know about Middle Eastern families, the oldest son is the golden child. They're the coveted one. They go into the family business. And I always knew I was Avis, that I was always going to be number 2. And, I should have called myself Avis.
That's so funny.
And it's hard when you know you're not special. And I always knew I wasn't special. And it can wear on you. And now the upside of that
made you achieve
is I didn't have to go into the family business, right? Because I didn't really like the grocery business. It wasn't my thing. Love what I do now. So it gave me freedom. And
you also became an achiever. You achieved a lot.
And it wanted me to earn significance. Mm-hmm. Now, you can't attach your worth to your significance. Otherwise, that's a trap, right? If one of my books is in a #1 New York Times bestselling author, that means I'm terrible. No, you got to work on that. But the things that trigger this dragon are rejection. If you perceive others ignore or belittle you, if you feel lonely, this dragon can breathe fire on your emotional brain. And how this dragon causes people to react: loneliness, worthlessness, feeling small, having abandonment or commitment issues. How do you think this one impacted you?
I spent most of my childhood trying not to be seen because it was safer. But I wasn't really seen anyway. So, but being abandoned.
Or seen for the right things.
Right. I think it led me, so the being abandoned hurt my relationships with other people later, especially men. Being invisible led me at a later time to try to be seen in not so healthy ways. So my appearance became overly important to me, which is a trap also, because when you lose that, and at some point you will, that was really painful. And also trying to find significance in ways that were not always healthy.
So how do you tame this dragon? Now, the upside is the dragon may drive you to be significant and help others to become part of a group that brings positive energy to the world. Now, this also could be why people join gangs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is. Significance, for sure.
Or want to be famous.
But that's significance too.
Well, they think it's significance, but it's a trap.
Right.
It's not a good trap. So to tame this dragon, it is critical to connect to other people, to become part of a group, to work, to make a difference. Volunteering, for example, is a great way to just gain significance and soothe this dragon, and to know your purpose and make the purpose meaningful, to be beyond yourself. Mm-hmm. So if you can, rather than look in at what you don't have, but look outwardly to what you can give, that helps tame this dragon. Mm-hmm. Now, we also did a fun thing in the book, and I asked for your help, which is what movies might each of the dragons like? And the movies for this dragon is you like underdog movies.
I love underdog. I love Blindside, Soul Surfer. Those are like
So Rocky,
Karate Kid,
Gladiator, 300.
I love 300.
Or one of my favorite movies, Slumdog Millionaire. And then for each of the dragons, I also have meditations. And meditation is so important. I know you meditate and have always found it to be really helpful. And I really like loving kindness meditations, but I add meditations for each of the dragons. And for this dragon, it's just repeat 5 times. I am loved. I am unique. I am significant. I am seen, and I'm blessed because I'm seen by you. So I'm seen by Tana. I am making a difference in the lives of, so for me, it'd be the patients at Amen Clinics, the people who listen to the podcast, the people who watch our public television specials.
And I love that. And one mantra that I really love is, it's not your job to love me, it's mine. And that just really helps me. It's like, it's my responsibility.
And it's my responsibility to see me.
Right.
To know what I want and ask myself every day, is my behavior getting me what I want? And also seeing the blessings of being the second son in a large family. My dad, as I'd mentioned, died in May, and I have 7 siblings. That my mom's not been alone.
She's been alone one night.
Because we just trade off spending the night with her. And
but that is
if I was an only child,
that is a
that would wear
testament
me
to
out.
a woman who has worked really hard to keep her family. She is the matriarch. She has worked really hard to keep her family strong. That's a testament to your mom.
No question. That she was very strong.
Because there's a lot of families that would not do that.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about the inferior and flawed dragon. This is the dragon that actually is driving the epidemic of teenage suicide. What'd you learn today? Write it down. Post it on any of your social media sites. Leave us a comment, question, or review at Brain Warriors Way podcast. You can pre-order the book at Your Brain Is Always Listening and get great gifts, including a bottle of Happy Saffron. Stay with us.
Your brain is always listening. I am thrilled to be your guide and show you how to tame your dragons so that you can have the happiness, peace, and the relationships you deserve.
Welcome back. We are still talking about Your Brain Is Always Listening, having so much fun with the dragons. We just talked about the abandoned, invisible, and insignificant dragon, and what to do about it. And I am looking so forward to this next one, which is the inferior and flawed dragon. But before we move on, you've got a review.
I do, and people can pre-order the book at yourbrainisAlwaysListening.com and order some great, get some free pre-order gifts that are awesome. Hypnosis audios, a free bottle of Happy Saffron, and an event with me March 17th. Only for those who pre-ordered the book, where I'm going to answer questions and
awesome.
Interact with them. Brain Lover Be Aware by Anne Maroy from Canada. She writes, for anyone who loves their brain and being 100% energized on a daily basis, just listen to it.
Oh, I like that.
I love it.
Simple and clear.
So today we're going to talk about dragon number 2. the inferior or flawed dragons. And this dragon bites so many people. And social media has elevated it to a level that is just so damaging. The origins are if you felt inadequate. I grew up feeling inadequate. I was smaller than everybody else. I was beaten up by my brother repeatedly. Like all the home movies are him pounding on me. And I'm like 50 and my dad's giving us all home movies. I'm like, Dad, why did you let him beat me up? And why would you take movies of it? And he said, well, somebody had to take movies. And it was a total stupid answer. But I felt inadequate.
Yeah.
And its origin is feeling damaged. You felt less than other people, either in your ability, your looks, your money, or your relationship.
This seems to me like this dragon could really affect a lot of people because it could, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think most women have this dragon. I think most women have this dragon. Yeah, especially as we age.
Don't like how they look.
Exactly. But also, when things happen like sexual trauma, that really affects how you see yourself. You feel damaged. So, lots of different things can affect this besides.
Well, we're going to talk about the wounded dragon coming up, but dragons tend to go in a herd.
Right.
Right.
They have babies.
They have babies.
Right.
And, but this is the dragon that causes so many people to kill themselves because they don't ever feel enough.
Right.
And when you don't feel like you're pretty enough, smart enough, rich enough, and you can always compare yourself. It was funny. When I was little, my dad took me to the grocery store one day because he had a special guest show up. It was to, market and drive traffic. His name was Henry Height. He was 8 feet, 10 inches tall.
Oh, that's so funny.
He was a giant. He had gigantism. And I was just standing looking at him. It's just amazing. But even if you're 5'10", you're like, well, I'm not 6'4". And there's always
or I'm not as smart as, if you're not very tall, but you're really smart, then other people, they're going to compare themselves to you because they're not as smart, or they're not as rich, or they're not as whatever.
And so that's the trigger, is comparing yourself to others, or even looking in the mirror. And that is what's causing this epidemic rise. How people react when this dragon roars is they feel inferior. They can feel depressed. They can get jealous, be overly sensitive, perfectionistic, and they can actually develop something called body dysmorphic disorder, where they only see their body's flaws and obsess on them.
And that's what I was getting at, is that there's so many things that can cause that when you're a child, if you're abused or you're sexually abused. I could see where this one for women would really, or men.
Eating disorders.
And
you remember when we were at the Byron Katie event.
Yes. That's why I was thinking of this.
And she asked people to describe their bodies, right?
Oh yeah. And it was the weirdest thing to have all of the women.
What are your thoughts about your body?
What do you hate about your body? That's what she said. I will never forget it, because just about every woman in the room, fat, skinny, old, young, it did not matter. Beautiful, plain, they all had the same thoughts. It was so crazy.
And to tame this dragon, it's just critical to stop comparing yourself to other people. And I teach people the 18-40-60 rule that says when you're 18, you worry about what everybody's thinking of you. When you're 40, you don't give a damn what anybody thinks about you. And when you're 60, you realize no one has been thinking about you at
So
all.
true.
You need to care about what you think. And so I know it's hard to stop comparing yourself to others. 6 steps. 1, be aware of when you do it. 2, know comparison triggers and then avoid them. Like if you're looking at Fortune's top 400 richest people in the United States, and almost all of us are not in that list.
Yeah, or you're
so
scrolling.
Stop looking at the list.
Yeah, you're scrolling on Instagram and only looking at all these, beautiful models, and stop it.
And change the focus to something else. So consciously get your mind going in another direction. Focus on your strengths and accomplishments. I have that as an exercise for my patients. 5 is don't criticize others, because when you're criticizing others, you're more likely to criticize yourself. And 6, avoid mindlessly scrolling social media. The movies that the inferior flawed dragon loves are Marvel X-Men, mutant characters that have special powers.
Oh, how funny.
Love this. And the meditations, I am unique. I restrain from comparing myself to others. I am strong, independent. I will be my best, not someone else's best. I work hard. So, do any of you notice this dragon? Do any of you notice it in your children? It's very important to tame this dragon and consciously, purposefully work on not comparing yourself to other people. So what did you learn today? Write it down, post it on any of your social media sites. When we come back in this series, we're going to talk about the anxious dragon, breathing fire all over the world, especially in the midst of the pandemic. You can pre-order the book at yourbrainisaliwayslistening.com. Leave us a comment, question, or review at brainwarriorswaypodcast.com. Thanks for being with us.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're interested in coming to Amen Clinics, use the code PODCAST10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.